The Sudrian Chronicles. Story 2. Thomas and the Coaches. Originally written by Wilbur Audrey. "My coach is this, fetch me that," grumbled Thomas as he shunted Gordon's coaches. It had only been a week since he was dragged out of the station by Gordon, and he complained every second of every minute of every hour of every day. Gordon sat at the platform, waiting patiently for Thomas to bring his train. He had called many of times to "Fetch me my coaches," boomed the big engine for the umpteenth time. "I have, you're welcome very much," chuffed Thomas. Gordon huffed. "You're too impatient, little Thomas," says the engine who dragged me across the island because he couldn't wait for me to be uncoupled. "Cheeky little git." "What was that?" called Thomas, who had traversed points in the back of the station and was now pulling alongside. "Learned your lesson, have you?" "Learn your lesson yourself. Fact director hasn't gotten to you at all, I say. Don't drag a poor engine on the back end of your train. Honestly, Gordon, my wheels haven't felt the same since. What the fact director needs is a proper engine. Like me." "Proper, indeed. You're too impatient, little Thomas." "Little? Pah! I'm not small. Your funnel's the one that's small." "Either way, you need to take your time. Your attention span is smaller than a lump of ballast. You need to be patient." "Huh? I was listening. Granted, you never have anything important to say." "Gordon is right," came a voice. Jules entered the station to the side of Thomas. "You shunt everyone's trains as fast as you can, then you berate anyone who's near you about how you want to leave the yard and see more of the island." "Thank you, whoever you are." "I'm, James. We've talked like 6 times before." Right, sorry. Do you smell a burning smell?" "Smell what smell? Hang on, I thought your name was Jules." Yeah, but it's complicated." "Right, well, Gordon, I wouldn't take too kindly to our James here. He's too stuck up for himself. I honestly would compare him to you. Vain assholes who only care about yourselves." Hang on. Since I finally got you two plonkas here, I can finally show you the song I made. It's called I Hate You Guys. "Don't you dare! The passengers wouldn't like it." But Thomas didn't care. So Wade made a nice head of steam and Thomas burst into song. "I hate you guys. You guys are assholes. Especially Gordon. I hate him the most. James is a narc. He talks too much." "Okay, that's enough," came a voice. It also blared through the station as Edward came in from a nearby platform. "I'm sorry, Gordon. James. Thomas, why don't you come take my coaches away and we can shunt together?" Thomas let out a sigh of annoyance as he followed after Edward. Thomas and Edward entered the yards, shunting the coaches away, then went to a siding to have conversation. "Now, what have I told you about getting into arguments with the big engines?" "What? They were being prats. Gordon was making fun of me, and James joined in for no reason." "And what did I tell you to do in those types of situations?" "To ignore them." "That's right." A pause came from Edward. He had a quizzical look upon his face, almost like he was trying to remember something, or to form a thought in his head. "Thomas, do you know what you mean to me?" I think so. You're like a brother to me, Thomas. My annoying little brother. Hey! But you still mean a lot to me. For the past, what has it been, 10, 15 years that we've known each other, I've been... What are you getting at, Edward? Fact director's not getting rid of you. Don't tell me Fulcrum is taking your place." "Oh, nothing like that. Well, I'll be going away." "Where?" "They opened a new branch line at Wellsworth. I've been assigned to work there with a few of the engines who used to work a railway. I'll be gone for some time, and I don't know when I'll be back." "Don't leave me, Edward. I can't be left alone with these crazy engines. You're the only one keeping me sane at this point. It's hard making sure Molly doesn't have an anxiety attack every 2 minutes. I'm going to kill Gordon and Fulcrum one day, and don't even get me started on James. I want to throw him off a bridge and make him drown, Edward." "I'm sorry, Thomas, but sometimes special people come into our lives, stay for a bit, then they have to go." "But that's sad." "It is. But we were happy, weren't we?" "Yeah, well, Well? It's just not fair! Why can't you stay, Edward? Edward looked at his buffers, contemplating his response. The director had only asked if he wanted to go, and he was the one to say yes, despite knowing it would hurt Thomas. At last, the words came to him. Thomas, I have been here for a long, long time. I think it's time for me to see the world. See the world? What more is there? Well, there's more than just Sodor, though I'm not sure if I wanted to see a lot farther than here after the war. I would like to see the rest of the island, though. The engines to the west are very friendly, and I'd like to see some old friends as well. Why do you get to leave and I don't? I want to come with you. I want to see the world with you. He clanged with a flurry of emotions. Edward's face faltered. This was a subject that he was not ready to approach. He hesitated to say, well, you have Henry. But he knew too well that Thomas would be taking care of him more than vice versa, so he didn't. I'll tell you what. If you ever need me, you can always ask the fact director, and he can always arrange something for the two of us. The two engines sat in silence until the blue engine had left. Thomas felt like his whole world was falling apart. Edward, his best friend, his brother, was gone. Just like that. Eventually, steam trickled into Thomas's cylinders. His fire felt brighter than ever. His solemn expression was now replaced with pure determination, glaring at the yard entrance. Just beyond it lay the outside world. He had partially seen it before, only being a blur and him limping home. It was hardly anything. He had a shot, one opportunity, and imprudently, it wasn't his time to blow it all away. Edward got his shot, and he wasn't about to throw away his shot either. He needed to prove himself. He wanted to see the world. I am not going to throw away my shot! And he puffed away to come up with a plan. He hadn't a clue of what he would do, but something was better than nothing. For the rest of the day, he shunted hard and on time. He tried his best, and every time the fact director came out of his office, he made sure to show off his best work, which the coaches greatly appreciated. It was late at night when Thomas entered the sheds to sleep. He didn't want to talk to any of the other engines. Fulcrum had gone on and on about how nice it was for the old tea kettle to finally leave for the retirement railway. Thomas kept to Edward's words and stayed away from the prick. He stared at his buffers, lost in thought of a plan. Suddenly, a small cough broke his thinking. He was so concentrated that he had not realized who he was sitting next to. Henry sat beside him to his right and a dozing Molly to his left. Thomas stared on at Henry. He seemed in a very sorry state. His smokebox door is open, and the men were cleaning out his ashes. Henry moaned as he blinked, albeit in a delayed fashion. You all right? Asked Thomas to the face hanging on its hinges. Not my best, Henry wheezed in fits. Thomas had never had a proper conversation with Henry. He was either being miserably sick or too busy to talk to. They had only ever had the passing conversation about what train Henry had needed, Thomas complaining of how Henry always felt terrible, or that one odd time they had talked about American politics. At that moment, Thomas had the realization. Every morning, he shunted the coaches for the first train of the day, which Henry pulled. A flickering light bulb above Thomas turned on. Do you think you'll be able to pull your train tomorrow? Henry stared into space for a short time, pondering the question, although it had looked like he had died. I don't know. If you can't take your train, can I? Henry stared again at Thomas, slightly more alive. Is this about Edward? He told me that you want to try to escape and visit him, but not even a day after he's left. No. I mean, yeah, I'd like to visit him, of course, but I want to take a train as well. I've never been out of the yards until Gordon dragged me across the island. I'd like a chance to go at it again, on my own. Henry's face changed from the tiresome dead look to a now stern but feeble look. Are you ready for it? Of course I am. Henry let out a small tither, which turned into a hysterical fit of coughing all over Thomas's running board. The tank engine winced. He would need to ask Wade and Bob to clean him off next morning. If the fat director agrees. Oh, thank you, Henry, thank you. You're the best.
Shush! Some engines are trying to sleep,
rattled Gordon, who was woken up by the commotion. And with that, Thomas went off to sleep. Or at least he tried. If his excitement was steam, he would have blown up in seconds. Thomas woke up early next morning. He shunted Henry's coaches to the platform with a spring in his puff and waited. He waited and waited. The passengers entered the coaches, but Henry never came. Presently, the fat director came out of the door to the station, followed by a group of men. They were all chattering loudly to him. The fat director nodded at them, pretending to listen and agree with them. He stared at the train on the platform.
Where is Henry?
He asked the men.
That's what we've been trying to tell you. He's ill again. He needs time to steam up, and he won't be able to make it for his first train.
Bollocks! Who can take his place?
Thomas is available, sir,
suggested one of the men. The director hesitated, turning to the men.
Is Gordon available?
No, sir. He's being steamed up for the express as we speak.
Edward?
He's moved to Bosworth.
Beryl?
Out with the kipper. Still.
Fulcrum?
Banned from coaches.
Molly?
Panic attack.
James?
Nope.
Henry?
Again, ill.
Any of the other engines?
There's the engines at Timnath, but no one can make it here in time. The only engine who can is Thomas, sir. The fat director took a long breath of air and turned towards Thomas.
You'll have to pull Henry's train.
But before the fat director had turned around, Thomas was at the front already, grinning widely. The director let out a long sigh, then walked up to him.
Now, Thomas, you must be patient. Passenger trains are important and must be handled with care. Are you listening?
The director's voice had trailed off. Thomas was paying attention to the signal gantry far in front of him. The morning sun shone down bright, just a bit out of the station. The fat director seemed satisfied, so he left it at that. Thomas waited and waited. Passengers buzzed around the platform. Porters roughly tossed luggage into the van. The station master vehemently walked up and down the train. Thomas rested his focus on his path. Suddenly, a guard's whistle sounded, and without thinking, Thomas blew a great cloud of steam as he began to depart. People at the platform ran and waited for Thomas. His cloud parted to reveal a bright blue sky that glimmered off his paint. He raced through forests and trees that touched the clouds and into mines of diamonds that distorted his face. He raced through forests with trees that touched the clouds and into mines of diamonds that distorted his face. Then he popped out of the ground, which bent high and over tall viaducts that glided above deep rivers. He felt like his wheels were floating on clouds. Everyone he passed cheered him on. Soon, he took the sharp incline of Gordon's Hill. It was easy now, and soon he crested over the top and gracefully floated down the other side. And there he was, just in the distance, Edward, waiting for him at Wellsworth. Edward blew a boisterous whistle that echoed through the valley. Thomas! Thomas! Look at me, Edward! I'm seeing the... He came to a sharp halt. He looked up to find a red signal on a rock, which faded into the lame gantry. Thomas! Cried a voice that wasn't Edward. It was the signalman. Wait, what? He had stopped right before the signal gantry of Vickerstown. The signalman was red in the face and hopping mad. What are you doing? Your path isn't clear, you daft thing! Thomas glanced back. He hadn't even left the yard, and was just a mere yards away from the station. And where the bloody hell is your train? Oh, it's at the station. Because you're stupid! To add insult to injury, Fulcrum, the engine actually departing, saw everything. Wow. Looky at what we have here. This flapdoodle thought
He could pull a train. What a buffoon! Stupid little tank engine.
His trucks hurled inserts toward Thomas. Thomas felt depressed as he backed up to his coaches.
What was that?
Demanded the director as Thomas was being coupled up properly to the coaches. Brake test, sir. Just seeing if I'm ready. The fat director stared deeply at the tank engine, observing him, almost seeing through him.
You must be more patient, Thomas.
Then he turned on his heel and went for the train. Thomas was speechless.